What's the Alter Rebbe's problem that he's addressing in the Hakdama? His first problem is nobody is supposed to be the same. We are, and we therefore have to find an avodas Hashem that's different.
Right.
And the job of the Rebbe or Tanya is to allow each one of us to find our own different way. So the whole Chabad from the very beginning was never about making some type of everybody the same system. I think that's one of the things that I think is most challenging in Chabad today, is that we always love to see the Rebbe in ourselves, and we have a very hard time seeing the Rebbe in another.
Welcome to Homesick for Lubavitch, a podcast where we explore Lubavitch identity in the year 2025. My name is Ben Ziaftzin, and I will be your host. Let's begin. Alrighty, I am here with Rabbi Choni Friedman of Pittsburgh. What's the area?
Here at Greenfield.
Greenfield, which is a neighborhood of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Pleasure to meet you. I do remember you vaguely from back in the day. I actually was in yeshiva here, or school here, for about a year, 7th and 8th grade. And I think it was about then that you got married.
Possibly.
Your brother-in-law Chesky's bar mitzvah.
Yes,
I think you had just gotten married.
Yeah,
I remember because I was
before.
friends with Chesky, and I remember like his first sister got married. I remember you coming over for Shabbos. I used to hang out there from time to time. So that was, I think, the last time I've bumped into you. Anyway, thank you for coming on.
No problem. By the way, before we go further,
Yeah.
I'm going to aside here. You're hitting that class. Do you hear it? Or
Yeah, whatever.
it's fine. It's not fun.
No, yeah, you're right.
No problem. I'm just,
You're right. You're right.
So let me say as follows. Actually, I remember on one of your podcasts you were speaking about the story about you chazering a mimer by the oil. And I was like, I remember standing once at the oil listening to Ben Ziaftzin chazar a mimer.
Oh, you were there?
It could be. It was
It was only one time.
One time?
Yeah.
And I was like, wow. But at the same time, like, who would do this?
Yeah. Look at the, one of the ways of dealing with like a moment that pisses you off is number one, is like, okay, this is a good story for down the road. This is well before I had a podcast, but it's like people like, how did you deal with that? It's a good story. It's a good story to keep in the pocket. You never know when. and I got my use out of it. That story made its rounds, but that's funny.
But I will say that I miss it.
You miss what?
Lately, you go Shabbos to the oil, and I go. There is no chazarah's dach.
That didn't usually go on. I mean, let's be honest. That wasn't going on every week there.
But it was going on for a few years at the bigger Shabbosim that I came. At the end of Shabbos, there was something going on.
They don't do Seder Negurim anymore.
Maybe they do. I haven't seen it in the Shabbosim that I've gone.
I haven't been there for years. Look, I mean, I was a bit of an extremist when it came to chazering a mimer back in LA already, in California. I was on shlichus in LA with your fellow Pittsburgher, Rebbe-like Reuben.
He speaks about it.
Yeah, about me going crazy in yeshiva.
And chazering mamarim.
Yeah, so that was, So first of all, I don't know if I took control or I was given control of, like I was given like the chayes of the mimer between, by saying Negunim and Shabbos Mincha. And like the way it usually goes in yeshiva is you ask a bacher to do a mimer, and then he maybe reads it before, maybe doesn't, and then he sits down and he like reads it in front of everyone, and everyone's dozing off and sleeping, and I'm like, to hell with this. Like just better, in my opinion, just don't do it. So I made a policy that whoever's going to chazar a mimer has to know it by heart, preferably without a sefer in front of them. And if nobody else is going to do it, I'm going to do it. And with practice, I don't have like a photographic memory or anything, but with practice, I was able to teach myself how, in the course of a couple hours, I could, memorize a mimer and chaz it over. Not word for word, but in Yiddish or in English, I don't remember. Then to add to the legend around it is, I don't think I did this intentionally, but every Shabbos afternoon, I was one of the shluchim. We used to host a farbrengens in the shluchim office, and so. To put it lightly, I used to come a little bit, dizzy. to mincha, and I guess not dizzy enough, and that was, I think, something that people found interesting.
Here, Baruch Hashem, when Rabbi Eli Rubin came, so a little while later, we decided to start Seder Chazarah's Dach here in the shul.
That's nice.
Every Friday night, either myself, I do once a month, Rabbi Eli Leib does, and then we try to get other balabatim or other people to do. And every Friday night, somebody chazes a mimer.
That's nice.
And Eli Leib actually wrote a what is it called? A paper based on different sichas of the Frierdiker Rebbe and the Rebbe, how a mimer is supposed to be said.
Uh-huh.
And it's meant to be, it can't be longer than 12 minutes, and you have to say the teichen, not word for word. Basically, to give her an inyan that people should be able to understand it, etc. And it's actually very nice. And different people come and say,
Right. Look, just to go back to that mimer at the oil, I know it was longer than 12 minutes, but to defend it, I think it was the Bosi Lgani of Toshin Lamed Aleph, which is an extremely long mimer, and I only chazed half of it. So it wasn't like, gratuitously, Mitzar Sabrius. Maybe I was trying to show off, but I was supposed to chazed the mimer. How are you supposed to chazed the first 4 sifim and stop? So I did half.
No, if anything, I have tinus the other way around. Number one, unbelievable. Good for you. I mean, like for Kert, I wish that we could all chazim mamorim like this and people would do it. But I wish even more that we would care about it. We're in a new Lubavitch where we don't care. Lubavitch has become...
Well, why do you think we don't care? We don't care because the people doing it don't care. You cannot expect bochurim to care about a practice when they see the people doing it at the top don't really care.
Correct. So
and one of the reasons I was first, I think, inspired to Chazer Mamorim was because if you go to 770, I don't know what goes on today. I haven't been there for years, but for a bunch of years, every Shabbos afternoon there was someone chazing a mimer, and that Seder Gunim, someone chazing a mimer, never with the sefer in front of them. Balabatim of Crown Heights. I think one of your uncles was, and there were other people. It was different every week. It's like you see people that are, maybe they're good at it, maybe it's easy for them, but at least they take it seriously. See Grumblat in Argentina. He's a shliach. He's busy, but he was one of the chayzerim in the lamas. He has a tremendous memory. He remembers a lot of the memory from back then. And sometimes he has a sefer in front of him because I don't know if he has time to mamish learn it by heart, but he's not talking from the sefer. And he's talking in Castellano, in Spanish. You were in Argentina. And he's sitting there holding court for 45 minutes between Mincha and Ma'ariv, chazing a mimer, with his eyes open, talking to the people, teaching it to them. And sometimes there's 10 people in front of him. He doesn't care. You see something like that, you care.
Right, but I'm going from a more a bigger view perspective. In Chabad, and you could say maybe in the 40 years from Tafshin Yud till Tafshin Nun Beis, maybe this changed slightly, but Chabad stood for Avodas HaTfilah and Chazarah's Dach. Now, I don't want to get... we could also go into shlichus and community work, which was always in Chabad. But if you talk about Chabad as what did our parents go to the Rebbe for? To hear Chassidus.
Right.
What is Chabad if we're not chazering Chassidus? That means you're coming to the oil for a Shabbos, or you're coming to a group of friends for a Shabbos, whatever, and you're trying to re-energize yourself. We wanted the Rebbe to take the Nesiyas by chazering a mimer.
Just focus on about that.
Right? Where have we gone? In other words, I think this is what I'm talking about looking forward. I mean, in we started some of this conversation here, is that...
Wait, are you saying that there should be starting Tafshin Yud Aleph?
And not when?
Tafshin Yud?
I didn't mean that in any way.
I don't know if I can talk to you.
The Rebbe Rashab says Der Shvi. The Frierdiker Rebbe says Der Shvi.
I'm just saying. I'm saying you're saying that was in Sia started in Tafshin Yud Aleph?
I didn't mean to say it in any way. It could be not. I'm not here for that conversation.
I think it did, just for the record. But
well, you find it in Nun Beis, the Rebbe actually in the Sikha there. I think the Rebbe starts speaking about Yud Aleph versus Yud. So you could take that. I mean, I'm sure. And by the way,
on some level, maybe, but I think basically it was when he said a mimer. He was accepting.
So I don't know if the word is dafka saying the mimer, but you see, for example, when it comes to the Rebbe Rashab, right? It says that for 11 years he was...
Yeah, he would only say Mamar.
And then when he went into his father-in-law's, he went into his father's place at Rosh Hashanah Tafresh Nun Daled, right? He officially came back from the oil, he went to his spot. If you ask a chassid, he would tell you he was the Rebbe for the 11 years before.
But he would say no.
He would say no. So I think it's just ambiguous. Like when did the Rebbe officially... Does it make a difference to me? I don't even... These things don't bother me. If it happened in Yud or Tafshin Yud Aleph, I didn't mean it anyway. I think there's what happened this day, there's what happened this day.
It's what keeps me up at night, but oh well.
No, what I will say is that I think that even though the Rebbe moved away, the Rebbe's farbrengens was much more than Mamarim.
Right.
But yeah, what is our identity is I think the question. What is the identity of Lubavitcher Chossid? And we're not chazaring Chassidus.
Yeah.
Not because of Avodah, just because if you go into a Lubavitcher shul, when was the last time you heard a Maimer Chassidus being said?
Yeah, so what I would say as an answer to your question is a different question, or in my view, I think I'm not trying to be difficult, but the only way I know to answer this question is to think about another question, which is what is it? How does it work to be a chassid in Der Shvi? And what's the difference Der Shvi and another time? I do feel that it's pretty obvious that in previous dairs it was pretty specific what it meant. Like from the Rebbeim, it was pretty clear what it meant to be a chassid, right? Not that they had easy lives, but like the focus was pretty specific. Right? Yes, the identities of the Chassidim, I think, were a lot more colorful and layered then than we assume today. They weren't all the same. They weren't a monolith. But, what's Lubavitch, like, what it means to be a Chassid is pretty straightforward. The Rebbe demanded opposites. He said this. I'm not saying this. The Rebbe also spoke that all the Rebbeim, the famous thing of Hanach Satzmusay, the only way a Bacher in Yeshiva can handle the Kabbalah soil and the learning and the different topics, Miftzayim, Hanach Satzmusay, Shmir Zazdarim, right? And so, you could say the answer is Hanach Satzmusay, but Hanach Satzmusay is a demand, is an ultimate demand, and it's an acceptance that we're dealing with opposites and impossibilities, and we're demanding not the utmost from people, we're demanding more than the utmost. We're demanding contradictions from people. And so you say, what's Lubavitch identity today? Well, you first have to ask a question of what does it mean to be a chassid when in a way to be a chassid is impossible? And I feel that...
Why do you say impossible?
I say impossible because the Rebbe is demanding something that is impossible. So if you
why do you say he's demanding something that's impossible? What's the impossible there?
Logically impossible, I should say. Okay, what I mean...
Put words to it.
Learning, shlichus, chassidus, miftzayim. Now, on some level, these all come from the Eibishter, right? But in the day-to-day, the Rebbe would say, look, you have to go miftzayim, but only outside starim. You have to be into miftzayim, but you also have to be, a bach should be baki b'shas. At some point, the hours of the day get taken up. You have to learn Gemara and Chassidus and Kachin learning, but also Rambam and Chitas. Also this, also that. Okay, even if you are amazing at time management at the age of 18 years old, and we're talking about in the world at large, the percentage of people with good time management at that age is what, 3% maybe? Lubavitch, I think it's lower than 3%, but even if you want to be super charitable, it's 3%. It's not, but say we're teenagers, dealing with teenagers, right? And like Lubavitch teenagers do not have a model outside of the Rebbe. Like the Lubavitch lifestyle is not one of meticulous time management. We're not yekas. We show up late to things. We don't wake up early. Like, let's be real. Okay, so you take a bunch of people who are not great at time management and tell them that you have to live a life of meticulous, not shmir zazdarim, and go from one opposite to the other. Right? Chassidus, davening, Gemara, halacha, boom, 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 half hour halacha, half hour Nyanagul Mashiach, this, that. Okay, Miftzayim, in the world, out the world, back. This is, if it wasn't something that we accepted as what God wants, we'd say this is crazy. This is impossible.
Yeah, the Eibusher is in the impossible.
Right, so that's what I'm saying.
I remember a farbrengen.
That's what I'm saying, no?
I remember a farbrengen with, but that's not a question of I'll tell you what I'm saying. I remember a farbrengen with Itchamir Kagan years ago, speaking about the Seder of Simchas Torah by the Rebbe.
Right.
The farbrengens, the akafis, the going on talucha, and he's describing how it doesn't stop, right? Then he starts speaking about all the shurim you're supposed to be doing. Chitas, Rambam, Mavras Sedra for Bereshis as well. I mean, and at one point he's like, how do you do all this?
Right.
And he was like, just, Rebbe Kagan in his way was like crying. The Rebbe mont nimna nimnois.
Right.
Yeah, and he was speaking about it then, but at the same time.
But what's that mean? But one second. That's a beautiful vart, and like if I didn't meet Rabbi Kagan, but he sounds like a very geschmacky yid. And so, you're sitting at a farbrengen, and he's crying, and there's you're a little bit tipsy.
It was a
dizzy.
lebedik crying.
You're a little bit dizzy, like I said, and that feels good. Feels good. Okay, but now unpack it.
So
what does that mean?
So I had this experience.
What does it mean to demand the impossible?
So I had this experience this past Friday morning, and I don't want to get into all the details. I had Baruch Hashem and Enikol.
Mazel tov. Mazel tov.
And so basically my daughter having the baby was in New York, and it's happening through the night into the day. And as I'm waking up, I'm on shlichus here by myself. My wife's not in town, and
You weren't useful there.
What?
You weren't useful at the delivery.
No, there I wasn't useful. And there's shalach manas to give out. There's a Purim program to make. There's a farbrengen to have. There was different things in the community that had to happen. And I woke up in the morning, try to find like an update, like what's happening with the baby. And I hear it's whatever. It's going to take time.
Right.
And I couldn't fall back asleep. It's 6:00 in the morning, and I just slept for an hour or two. It wasn't like, and I'm like, so I'm up already, and I'm like, what am I doing today? And as I'm thinking how my day is going to actually happen, I realize that I'm already holding by Adol Yada. I'm already Purim Adol Yada. It's Purim, right?
Because you don't know which way it's going to go.
I don't know what I'm going to do.
You might be a Zayda, you might...
No, I don't know how I'm going to give up my shalach manas today. I don't know what point, at what time I'll do it. One of my kids hurt themselves. I was at the Svara. I had to go to the hospital that day. It was just total confusion.
Total chaos.
And I was like, I feel like a soldier on the front line who all I'm going to do today is whatever my instinct says to do. And that's what's going to be right?
Is it?
It'll end up being that way. In other words, what does a soldier think on the front line?
Soldiers get hit by bullets.
Well, they follow their instinct.
They follow orders.
Well, when
you're saying when things go chaotic.
When things are going, they're on the front line. You got your order. You got to go to this place. How do you do it? A lot of times, for a soldier, it's your training and what you've gone through in your previous training that you know exactly. An Israeli soldier, an American soldier, is not going to die in the line of fire, but they walk into the line of fire. Because they have training, they know how to work, they have their instincts, they tell them what's right, they make decisions, and what's going to be the right decision, the one that you do. And I realized when the Rebbe would speak about Eini Yedeya be'ezeh derech melichin oisi. Yeah, the Rebbe lived Adol Yada his whole life. What does it mean Adol Yada his whole life? That means he was probably, in a certain way, maybe never prepared for what the Eibusher was about to hand him. A new person with a problem, a new issue coming up, a new thing. And what do? Whatever's demanded of you at that moment, and based on what decision. It could be just your etzem, just this is what you're going to do right now.
Beautiful.
Right? I think that's the impossible that you're saying is, do we keep time? I'm not sure we keep time, but we do keep time. We're answering to the essence of who we are. And when we're in that mode of being a proper shliach, or I would say what the Rebbe would say, that kemoisei mamish.
Spring is here, which means that in 2 months, many communities will be looking for a way to mark Gimel Tammuz, the Rebbe's yard site. If you're looking for an event that is memorable, meaningful, and affordable, let me recommend This World is a Garden, a film and live concert production created by us here at Yuvla Media, inspired by Bosi Lgani, the first mimer the Rebbe said. If you're a regular here at HFL, you know that Bosi Lgani is something that we think about and talk about a lot. And in this production, We used the power of cinematic filmmaking and a live concert by a string quartet to bring the beauty of Bosi Lgani to your community and your audience in a way that they've never seen, heard, or experienced it before. The production has already been hosted by Chabad houses around the country and has drawn wonderful reviews. Our package comes with everything that you need to put in the production: the films, original arrangements for string quartet, publicity materials, everything besides the string quartet, which we recommend that you hire locally to save on travel costs. To find out more about this production, please visit thisworldisagarden.com. Again, thisworldisagarden.com. And now, back to the show. Can I be cynical, though?
Go away, go.
I mean, I am cynical, but can I be cynical over here? I think it's a beautiful thing that you're saying. I'm not discounting it. It's a beautiful. I see, and that's coming from higher than Tam Vedas and higher, it's Etzem HaNefesh and so on. But to use your example and to flip it, there was once a cover. There was a magazine for shluchim. It was called Compass, I think.
I think you still have it.
Yeah. Okay. I haven't seen it for a while. I'm also not a shliach anymore. But whatever.
Emunoh shliach, alam shliach.
Oh, whatever. Okay.
No. It's true.
Okay. I mean, I can't get off the list as much as I try, but I don't get Compass anymore. So figure out what that means. Okay. So anyway,
I might not read Compass.
No.
I used to say.
Okay. Lav dafka. Anyway, so so there was an issue years ago where the cover was a shliach's desk, and there was bills and svarim and oatmeal and a baby bottle dripping milk and like a balagan, and it was presented as l'shevach, or shliach once told me, look, a shliach's schedule is not in his hands. He answers a call. It's the morning, and I don't know what my day is going to be like you just said. And the cynical side of me says, no, this isn't a good idea. You're right that there are moments of chaos where the bullets are flying and all your rational thinking and order and schedule goes out the window. You just have to survive and kill the enemy or whatever and fulfill your mission. But that's not a game plan, right? The adrenaline is fired up. You're in a completely different zone. If you try to keep that going, you're gonna bust. You're gonna die. Period. End of story. That's a temporary reaction to a temporary situation. My point is that you cannot there is a seder v'adraga in life. Ad lo yada every single day. Chaos every single day leads to insanity.
It's only if I'll put it in different words. Yeah, I think if you had a soldier who was not making his bed every morning,
right,
and was getting up late, and in his training was living a farlezliche life, as they say,
right,
he wouldn't last in the army, and you would never want him on the front lines,
right,
for this exact problem. I'm not saying as we're all perfect, and I'm not saying when I'm talking here is that you actually do need your chitas rambam, your training, and being in a the more masuda you are, the more successful you're going to be. That's nothing to do, but it's because you have that training, is that you could kick into gear and all of a sudden accomplish things that other people can't do, or deal with situations that other people can't. And I don't want to say dafka other people. I'm talking about your own avodas Hashem, that all of a sudden you go into cruise control. Cruise control means your nature takes over, and you're going to do all types of things this day, and you're only going to know what you accomplished at the end of the day. It's almost like the Baal Shem Tov doesn't go to sleep till everything in his house is cleared out. Tomorrow's a Naya Tog. Was wird sein? It'll be figured out that day. The Eibusher is going to give you your malacha. But if you're pashat just not masuda or anything, then you're not going anywhere and you're not accomplishing anything. That's a whole different. One is not connected necessarily with the other. Adal Yoda here is not being bilti seder.
Right.
Adal Yoda is that your etzem of your training as a bacher in yeshiva, as a shliach of the Rebbe, with your upbringing and your whole mahus, could show up and lead you through a day of avodas Hashem, without being able to go through that all, even though there may be stiras bedavar and you don't know how, and there was so much to get done and everything, and you're going to make a massive difference in the world that day.
So you're talking about Kabbalah soil and Anachas Atzmosei. That's what you're talking about. That's the answer you're giving.
But it's deeper than that. Because Anachas Atzmosei very often means I don't think.
I understand. You're teaching Anachas Atzmosei not as being a robot, but as as stripping down all the thinking to instincts and to what's deeper in you, not more superficial in you, but what's deeper in you.
Yeah.
Yes?
So like you're a commando in the army that could do almost anything because of your training, and you naturally will react to things properly.
Yeah, okay, fine. I mean,
now, how often do we get that in our lives?
So that's what
if I experience it only put him, I'm happy.
So that's my point. That's my point. That's my point, is that even the answer asks a deeper question. I mean, like what you're talking about here, like it reminds me, I don't know if it's true. I didn't verify it with family members, but they say that my Zayd Bencha would sometimes daven at the end of the day because he wanted his whole day to be with that kind of burden of fahren daven. Like I'm only going to do it if it justifies pushing off davening. Like there's that kind of
you're making me laugh because I once heard that my Zayd Choni also would daven at the end of the day.
For the same reason?
No, for the reason that he never had a chance to daven.
Because he was busy with the
rebbes. Do this, do another thing. He was the avodah saklal took over his day,
right?
To the point that that his davening came when all of a sudden there was no other choice, right?
Yeah.
There was nothing, which again, I think there's a certain element. And by the way, I want to go back to this. I think this is an interesting. You started this off, and I don't know if I want to get so excited so easy, but so early. But could we start getting to some possibility? I think when we talk about this of being able to live this way, it's a little bit what I call being more Rebbe-like than Chossid-like.
Oh, that's exactly where I want to go.
Okay,
that's exactly where I want to go. That's my point.
When we talk about Adala Yada and all of a sudden living a life of Eni Yadei Bais Medrash Zal, I see we're talking about a shliach trying to think of himself to live the way that Rebbe lived rather than live the way a Chossid lives.
That's my point.
And you might say it's impossible, but the Rebbe demanded this of us the entire Nesias, and I would say at the end even more so. We could get into that in more detail. But it brings up something which, again, I'm just going to blow this up for no reason. I'm just having fun with you.
Yeah, let's have fun.
Let's have fun. It's one of the reasons why, I should say this, I've always been triggered by this, that the term Der HaShvi.
You weren't always triggered by it because trigger didn't exist until 10 years ago. But
yeah, but you know what the feeling is in your heart. The term Der HaShvi bothers me. And the reason why the term Der HaShvi bothers me is because to me it means people just trying to hold on to the past and not thinking, what does it really mean to be a chassid today?
You're saying Der Shvi after Gimel Tammuz bothers you. Okay.
Correct. Okay. Now, I don't know if we're Der Shvi, not Der Shvi. It makes no difference to me. In other words, what I mean to say is these semantics don't bother me. I think the Rebbe wanted Mashiach, the Rebbe wanted Mashiach to come, the Rebbe wanted us to be as chassidim, the Rebbe wanted us to bring Mashiach. These slogans that we put on, I don't know what they mean. The Rebbe never really told it to us in any way that it's like
there were seven rebbeim and there's 7 days. End of story. And then they passed away, and so that ended that there are days of Tanoim, that days of Amiroim, then they end.
Correct. That's and then what happens? So then the dar goes on forever. I mean,
no.
So if you want to say yes,
no,
yes.
It's not Der Shmini. It's the Ders were the Rebbeim. They built their thing, and then
fine. So look, I don't want to get into the philosophy of this whole thing. That's a whole different discussion, and the rayas from the stuff. I'm getting into a whole different issue. There's this element of we're trying to hold on to the past.
Yeah, we're stuck in time.
We're stuck.
Yeah.
Der HaShvi, because Mashiach didn't come the way we feel that Rebbe envisioned it in his first mimer, whether we reading it correctly or not.
No, many subsequent talks as well. It wasn't just a mimer.
Of what?
There was some Mashiach's coming now.
No, but there has to be dafka and Der HaShvi and nothing else. And we have to read the mimer dafka to mean it that way, which again, I could question that, and somebody wants to talk to me in the free time, I could. What I'm saying is...
Yeah, I agree with you that it's a lot more ambiguous than people make it.
Okay. So it's not 100% clear. The Rebbe is talking about bring Shchin Lamata. That the Rebbe does say.
100%.
Shchin Lamata...
V'niska zenzich. It's different than saying it's for sure going to happen. There's a word v'niska there.
Right. V'niska zenzich also, if you look in the footnote, it's about Rebbe coming to make kiddush for his family. So I'm saying is that, yes, it's very ambiguous, and that's not the point I want to make. The point I do want to make is that the Rebbe, when he did call for Der HaShvi, he actually was making a change from before.
Right.
That means the Rebbe should have said we're still in Der HaShishi.
Right.
But the Rebbe right away took the histalkus to mean new mission, new thing. We have something to do.
Right.
We've got to make it happen. We've got to figure this out, and we've got to make it happen.
Right.
And we use Der Hashvi to say the exact opposite.
Yes, we do.
We're still stuck. It's the same. Nothing's changing. Is it? I would say Gimmel Town is one of the biggest changes in Lubavitch history.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you're in Pittsburgh with Rabbi Reuben, so it's a rupture for sure. Rupture.
The rupture.
It's for sure a rupture.
Tzimtzum HaGadol.
Yeah.
And just to tell me that it's all the same.
Yeah.
I was a bacher, and I was 18 years old, Gimmel Tammuz. So I lived through that, my bacher years.
In Detroit.
No, I was in Olatera and in New York during Nun Bais, Nun Gimel, Nun Dalet. I was in New York.
Oh, you moved to New York after Chazan Oder, like to be there, or that was
no. So Nun Bais was my last year in Masifta.
Okay.
Nun Bais
In Detroit.
And then Nun Gimel, Nun Dalet. I was already I was a
Oh,
year and a half in
scheduled to be in
Olatera, and a
Olatera.
half a year I was in Montreal during that period.
So you're Moshe Garari's age.
I'm 2 years older.
Right,
I'm a
okay.
class older than
So
him.
I had him on the pod. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes. So my Zal years.
But you were in Detroit when Chazan Oder happened.
Correct.
Yeah. So he was he was talking about what it was like then. Yeah.
So he was a class younger than me.
Right.
Yeah. But then the years of Nun Gimel, Nun Dalet.
I mean, that must have been very rough for you. I mean, it was rough for everybody, but like you're about to get a taste.
Correct. Yeah,
And
I remember this.
completely ripped out from under you.
It reminded me of a farbrengen that I speak about, that we in Detroit in camp. So Tafshin Nun Beis, right?
The summer.
Summer.
So summer
We
after
were thinking,
Chazan
should we
Oder.
still go to Olatera or not?
The summer after Chazan Oder, just
Correct.
to put it. Yeah.
And we were thinking, should we go maybe to Manchester or stay in Olatera?
It's too painful. You're saying it's too painful.
No, because we weren't going to learn a word.
You knew you were going into like utter chaos.
Yeah, at that point, the Rebbe had come out on Shavuos,
Right.
if you remember this.
I wasn't there, but
And,
I've heard
and
of
it was like a...
No, I'm much younger than you.
It was a traumatic experience, I understand, for most people.
Yeah.
And so the Rebbe didn't
That was the
come
first
back
time. That was the first. It was at the front door, 770,
Correct.
right? That was the first time they saw him after.
Correct.
Yeah,
And-
it wasn't what they had anticipated.
Correct.
And also, what let's be honest, what they hadn't been told what they were about to see.
Correct.
Right.
Correct. And so Lamais Papayol, then we're talking about here summer, the Rebbe still hadn't come out again.
Right.
And so the conventional thought was we were not going to see the Rebbe.
Right.
We never had this idea that the Rebbe would come out on the porch or anything like that. It was like we were not going to see the Rebbe.
Right.
And so why are we going to Torah? Like what are we going to do there?
Right.
Let's go to Manchester. We'll learn Torah, do an avodah. So we decided to have a farbrengen with Rabbi Garari to figure out what we're going to do next year.
Uh-huh.
And we're sitting here at Garari in the post office, if you remember what that is in Detroit,
Detroit camp.
in camp. Yeah,
I never went, but
yeah. And we're having a long farbrengen.
that's near the airframe.
No, it's on the other side of the lake.
Oh, where the teen camp is now. It's a girls' camp now.
Yeah, so I don't know how it is today. So anyway, so we're sitting there. So we're farbrengen there, and Mendel Rubin came in. I think it's Mendel Rubin
I'm from Albany.
from Albany. Yeah, he was an older bacher, and he's listening to our conversation, and he's like, "You guys crazy?" He says, "Just to go to New York to say Krishma while you're in front of the Rebbe's room, and just look at the Rebbe's room and say Krishma is worth going to Olatera." And he convinced all of us, and we went to Olatera. But
You think that was the right call in hindsight?
I don't know. It's your life, you know. You look back and you
I'm
have.
I'm not asking to like should have, could have, but like, do you think he was right?
I don't know, right or wrong. I think that it made, when I speak with my friends, most people, their years of Zal, for the years before, for the bochurim before me, it was their first time they were by the Rebbe's farbrengens, and they got to experience the Rebbe's farbrengens and hear Torah, etc. from the Rebbe and live with the Rebbe in that way. For others, you could say Zal was they went to a yeshiva and they sat and learned Torah. For us, my first 2 years of Zal was Pashat living the Gashmias with the Rebbe for 2 years.
Like with the Rebbe's like health.
Correct. That's what we lived with. That's what, in
You
my experience.
didn't learn much.
We learned in our free time a lot.
You did.
Yeah.
What's pshat free time when you weren't at the
In
hospital?
other words, we were learning things like Sichas Kodesh and things like that. That I
But
was
there's no
learning a
star.
lot.
There's no
There
real-
was in Altair. There was.
There was star.
I'm not going to say that. For me, it was very difficult years because when you're farbrengen and your life is upside down, you don't really come to Seder that well.
What do you mean upside down? Because there's a siren and you run to 770?
No.
Or
I think just the emotional roller coaster.
Uncertainty.
Yeah. I also think maybe now that I opened up a Zal now,
saying
I think it's the age also.
Yeah.
The age of first 2 years of Zal. Is
Yeah, it's
very-
hard enough to take a teenager and get him to change that chair. huh?
Exactly. It's a tough few years.
Oh, yeah.
But with everything going on, then it was Mashiachistin and this. There was a lot of
you're saying the original kind of okay.
All those things were going on. I came from Detroit.
Everyone was.
So I'm an outcast.
Wasn't everyone Mashiachistin at that time?
Except a class of mine who just came from Detroit.
Oh, you guys were already antis.
Yes, I would say this. We used to have farbrengens with your grandfather and and your uncle.
You're like the only two. The only two antis, and the Shapiros like to. That Shapiro family likes to protest that they were also anti. But okay, so it was like
you have to realize
it's like 5 people.
Yeah, but also my family. I was a Friedman, and one of my uncles is married to a Krinsky. We were we were involved in what was going on a little bit. Actually, for me, it was one of the hard things because on the other hand, I had my grandfather was a Morozov.
He went the other way.
Correct. It was a tough time.
Mendel's your grandfather.
Yeah. It was a tough time for me as a bacher, and all this turmoil.
Right.
It wasn't good for me to get up in the morning and to learn regular stuff. Not like I didn't.
So was it worth it to say Kriya Shema at the Rebbe's room?
Again, it's what shaped me. I'm not looking back.
It is what it is.
I'm not looking back and saying I should have done something else.
You don't look back with regret.
No. Mm-hmm. No, not at all. I think there's an experience of I was there every time that I came out on the porch.
Right.
And lived that and was there. There's it's part of your identity, it's part of your being involved in that and being there was a certain and I say even afterwards, even with the time when the Rebbe went to the hospital later, there was experiences of you felt the closeness to the Rebbe and the shaping of what was going on and as of shaping of Chabad that was happening at that time. Let's be honest, Chabad in those 5-6 years, and I would say really in that 2-year period, shaped Chabad as it's like the seeds that made all these different directions that Chabad goes in today. A lot of it happened at that time,
Yeah.
And
it's certainly the fragmentation accelerated then. I mean, you were there, I wasn't, but the way I read it is that like the fragmentate, like something that was holding everything together broke, right? And people started, the splintering started, and it's.
I think the splintering started openly.
Right.
There was already frictions
it's well before. Oh yeah. That's one of my main like positions on this podcast, which. I don't understand how it's even debatable, but I guess it's always how people think when they think they're right. That like this idea that Lubavitch changed, like what we're dealing with now is all post-Gimmel Tammuz. What do you talk like? Post-Gimmel Tammuz didn't happen in a vacuum. Yes, that was a massive game changer event, but like the results that happened after, like they can't all be attributed to Gimmel Tammuz. The way people reacted to it and dealt with it in the different ways tells you that something was going on before. And it doesn't take much digging into the nuns and the mems to realize that something was afoot well before Gimmel Tammuz, and something was already, probably even before the mems, but it certainly was at the surface in the mems.
Right, but I think that's why I think as a kid and going through that time, etc., you when the Rebbe says, who was it? Was it your grandfather? That was Ovis Ner from Lubavitch. What was the term?
Oh, he wanted his kids to know. No, I've heard the story. Yeah,
Ner from Lubavitch. So there's this element of the bochurim, my group of friends and the guys who were older than me that were still bochurim.
Did Rebbe say that to my grandfather? Or he said to
I don't remember. It's mentioned in a sikha that Rebbe says it.
Right.
Somebody said this.
Right.
But I'm saying is that these guys and all of us, I would say, at that point there was total dedication to the Rebbe and the Rebbe's Inyanim and to the furtherance of the Rebbe's Inyanim.
Right.
And I think that for us, and this is where I'm really getting to, is that right afterwards it became a discussion of what does it mean? What does it mean? What is it? Where are we going? What is this? We just went through a tzimtzum. We went through the rupture, as we just used the term before.
So you said earlier that means that you're more you're not so much a chossid. You're doing a rebbe shaved.
I said that yes. That I think as I'm here today, I think that one of the things that we have to look at ourselves and realize that Rebbe wanted, when you talk about the idea of shlichus means shluchei shalom k'maisai.
Right.
The Rebbe wanted us. When you talk about the idea of the Rebbe saying, tut altvas kent,
right,
and the Rebbe saying each one of you, what is the Rebbe really saying? The Rebbe is really saying that it has to be with the pnimius and from your perspective. The Eibishter wants a dira b'tachtonim in each of you equally to me. I think it's one of the themes that,
But don't you see how that was my original point? Don't you see how asking Chassidim to do something that's traditionally expected of the Rebbe, no, I don't think the Rebbe was expecting them to become Rebbeim, but asking them to transcend what being a Chossid always meant is, at the very least, setting things up for there to be a massive fragmentation of identity. Because there's a reason why there are norms. There's a reason why very often leaders will ask people for something that's more midid of Agbala, because you are otherwise you're breaking the system.
But I don't think the Rebbe was looking for a system.
Right. That's my point. You cannot talk about the identity of Lubavitch without first unpacking what did the Rebbe what was the Rebbe looking for in the identity of a Chassid? What was he demanding? What did he expect? How much of it is expectable on a rational, hour level kind of thinking? We cannot have this conversation about Lubavitch identity if we refuse to go a step back and say, wait a second, the Rebbe changed the calculus entirely. That's what I'm not, So
I don't think there's a question about that.
Yeah. I don't think it's a controversial statement, but a lot of times people will be like, what does it mean to be a Lubavitcher today? And it's wait a second. In the past, a Chassid was supposed to be a Chassid, and it was pretty straightforward what he was supposed to be. Like I said earlier, I think the Rebbe demanded the impossible, right? He demanded the impossible, and he believed that people were capable of it. But what the Rebbe says and what the Rebbe believes doesn't transfer to me automatically because I'm a Lubavitcher. I could maybe feel that that's true or believe that it's true and hope to reach that, but it doesn't just transfer to me. Because the Rebbe says that I can, any day I see, and that's a way to live, doesn't mean that I automatically am compatible with that. If anything, no, fakert, you're not. You have to try to get there, but your teva is not to get. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, but I think that after Gimel Tammuz, when the Rishimas came out, so in Rishima of I think it's Shavuos, I think it's Rishima Yud, he speaks there about Rav or Reb Chia saying that about what will be Mashiach will come, right? So anyway, there it says that he brings down that Nashim, that the women are going to have a greater schus than the men when Mashiach will come. They'll get a greater reward. And so, I don't want to go into the but he brings down a pasuk about, I don't remember the exact lashon, Nashim Sha'nanos, I don't know if you remember, if you know what I mean, Banes Beitches and Nashim Sha'nanos. It's and the Rebbe is mechalek between Nashim and Banes. And the Rebbe says Nashim, they're a separate mitzias from their husband. There are two that get married.
Right.
But she's promised, and she's batua, she's shananis, means she's very calm that she'll be getting her reward. It's owed to her.
Right, ksuba, yeah.
Yeah. Mashenkim banis, they're boitches. The banis, she's baiteach. She believes that she's going to get. She trusts that she's going to get her reward.
Right. There's no contract.
The difference is she's one and the same of her father, but she's never with her father.
Right.
She goes to Merchakim with another person, with another man, right. And she's going to be a queen somewhere else, and she's going to bring her father there. And for this, and when this Rishima came out, we were talking about this as Tafshanun Hey, about this difference of before Gimel Tammuz and after Gimel Tammuz. We were speaking about this concept a little bit, but I think it goes back to this.
Well, 1 second. How did you talk about it? That
after Gimel Tammuz, we're a child of the Rebbe. The Rebbe has put his atzmos into you. You see this concept in Lamashal in the Hey Tevis Mamarim, especially from Tafshin Test, maybe it is the Maimer about Samech Gula Tefillah, right, where he says that Yosef puts the Gviya B'Amtachas Binyamin, and there he speaks that that's the Rucha Deshavik Begavei, which is the same term that's used in Siman Chav Zayin and Tanya about Rucha Deshavik Begavei with regard to the Chassid having part of the Ruach of the Rebbe. this theme of
But
the
one
Rebbe.
second, it sounds like you're covering you're skipping over something.
What am I skipping over?
You're talking about after Gimel Tammuz that the daughters this idea of trust and like inherent like unbreakable connection with the daughter with the father.
You're one instead of two.
Yeah, I understand. I understand.
The Rebbe lives in you rather than.
But
you.
why did you feel that you used to be the other one? Did you feel that a contract was broken?
No. It was the feeling of, and by the way, I look back at it.
Like before Gimel Tammuz, it was the other one.
I don't think we were looking at. I think we're just looking at. We were interpreting. What does the day look like today? What is today? What is our new challenge? What is the meaning of our day today? What does it mean? I don't mean the day of that day. The new time, this new era. What is it? Mm-hmm. And you're looking at things and learning it into your time. And what I'm saying is that you're sitting here Nun Hey, and we're thinking about why is today different than Manishtana Laila Mizem? We call it Leilas. Like, what is this?
Right.
And if you look at this and take Siman Chav Zayin and Tanya, at least the way I understand it today, that you say that before the Histalkus of a tzaddik, the way you had his Emunoh and his Ava and his Yira was being in his presence.
Right.
Right?
Right.
And then what about today? The Emunoh and the Ava and the Yira is supposed to be of you. It's supposed to be within you.
Right.
What's the change in dynamic? The change in dynamic is before, and this is the way I'll say it, before if you wanted to live with the Rebbe, even though by the Rebbe you find this, even then, the Rebbe would say, even on Silvashal Simchas Torah, that those that are far are right here, and the ones that are right here can be very far. The Rebbe said this in Tafshin Chaf or Chaf Aleph already.
Right.
At the same time, I think that when you look at it today, you can't become. Let's go through one more time. By the Rebbe before, if you wanted to be close, you had to go to 770 and hear him and see him and watch it. If today you want to be close to the Rebbe, how do you do it? You have to have the Rebbe within yourself. You have to live it.
Right.
You have to live it. And that's a different. It's a whole different oifen of. It's not that you're becoming karev. It's that you just become. This is who you are supposed to become. Now you ask me, okay, could you become this? So on the one hand, the Rebbe says the fact that you're a born daughter, and that's what I wanted to get back to. A king could have many daughters, and they're all different. There's no system. There's no, and one is going to become a king and a queen in one country, one in a whole different country, and they have to go by the minhagim of that country. There's no system. You have to look a certain way or act a certain way or be a certain way. But wherever you're going to be, your essence will come out if you're connected or you are still one with it and you live it and you have that emunah and you have that. And now in our world of a Yetzer Hara, how often does it come out? Okay, maybe it comes out, Yom Kippur Tina'ila, you feel it. Hopefully you have it more times than that. And that's what you strive for, more and more. But I think that we find the Rebbe, and I think this is, if we want to go down this path, I think that's one of the things that I think is most challenging in Chabad today.
Which is
that we always love to see the Rebbe in ourselves, and we have a very hard time seeing the Rebbe in another.
Pushing all my buttons today. Huh?
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. Do you listen to this podcast by any chance?
By the way, I love this podcast. There's certain podcasts that have it's like a limud. I think these conversations are ones I wish would have happened a long time ago, but at the same time. To hear the stories of the Rebbe's unique involvement in people's lives and stories, and how they each, there's a whole, each person you're interviewing has almost a different Lubavitch than the guy next to him.
A different Rebbe also.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that's, you don't get that from just learning a sikha or a mimer.
No.
And you really, and it's just it's, I think it goes back to this, this I think it's even more today where I think I'll put it this way, I think that what the Rebbe really wants is that these stories should be in every single human being.
Right.
Every person should have his mikdash LaHashem.
Spring is here, which means that in 2 months many communities will be looking for a way to mark Gimel Tammuz, the Rebbe's yahrzeit. If you're looking for an event that is memorable, meaningful, and affordable, let me recommend This World is a Garden, a film and live concert production created by us here at Yuvla Media inspired by Bosi Lgani, the first mimer the Rebbe said. If you're a regular here at HFL, you know that Bosi Lgani is something that we think about and talk about a lot. And in this production, we use the power of cinematic filmmaking and a live concert by a string quartet to bring the beauty of Bosi Lgani to your community and your audience in a way that they've never seen, heard, or experienced it before. The production has already been hosted by Chabad houses around the country and has drawn wonderful reviews. Our package comes with everything that you need to put in the production: the film's original arrangements for string quartet, publicity materials, everything besides the string quartet, which we recommend that you hire locally to save on travel costs. To find out more about this production, please visit thisworldisagarden.com. Again, thisworldisagarden.com. And now, back to the show. It would be a very poor world if the Rebbe was the same in every person, or if there was only one Chossid that was the only guy that we could, I think I once put it this way, like, the Rebbe is Lashon Yachid. Like, by definition, you can't have, in general, there has to be one leader, there has to be one CEO. That's even Begashmias. Beruchnias also, there has to be one head. Otherwise you're going off in different directions. There has to be one Rebbe at a time. But there has to be, I know there has to be, but there's definitely a possibility of there being multiple Chassidim. That's not a stira, right? So Chassidim is, and in a way, he understands, right? Because by definition, no Chossid can ever be a Rebbe. So how are the Chassidim like a keli for the Rebbe? And like in the lashon of Hayim Yom, like how's the Rebbe nishtalent? Because there are many Chassidim, right? This big Rebbe can connect with all these Chassidim, and they can all bring out a different element, a different teaching, a different resonance, right? That's how it's supposed to work. Instead, we've kind of, for fear, for whatever reason, and I think there are explanations, tendencies that make sense. For whatever reason, we said, no, there has to be like one definitive, what is a chassid, and one way only, and my way is a highway, and I need certainty, and I can't tolerate something else. It's like such a poor, impoverished world to be in. It's just an impoverished world to be in. Like, so boring and so miserable. Like there's such an interesting world out there of people who are different than you, and they teach you lessons. Like, this is what Chassidus talks about. His skalulus. Chassidus talks about his skalulus, right? Like, and just to turn it back to a little bit what you were saying earlier. Like, where does it say? I forget. I think one of the Rebbe, maybe the Rebbe said about a Skash Sefidik Rebbe, or maybe one of the earlier Rebbeim, that the way to be Makusha to the Rebbe who had passed away is by Limud Chassidus and Dark Chassidus, Chassidus Farbrengens. I was like, wait a second, what is Chassidus Farbrengens like an Indian schoolie that we talk about the Rebbe, which is of course how people, which is to me, I don't get it. Like, how does that? It helps you a little bit, but that's not what it is on it. No, it's because, like, if you're on an island all by your own, the chances of survival are grim. Right? If you're going to insist that your way is the only way to exclusion of all else, the chances of survival are grim. So you need to learn the Rebbe's Chassidus, because otherwise you have no connection, you have no basis of anything. But then you have to open it up to other ideas and other opinions and see where other people stand, because that's the only way you're going to survive. You're going to survive. Forget about them.
So I want to speak to hafla of what we're talking about here a second, because number one, people, it's easier to ignore this, but whatever. Go to the Hakdama of Tanya.
Right.
What's the Alter Rebbe's problem that he's addressing in the Hakdama? His first problem is nobody is supposed to be the same.
Right. Right.
The whole Tanya is that we could all be different.
No, we are different.
We are, and we therefore have to find an avodas Hashem that's different.
Right.
And the job of the Rebbe or Tanya is to allow each one of us to find our own different way.
Right.
Not the same way.
Right. That's what Yechidus was for, exactly. Each
Different
person
ways.
on their own.
So the whole Chabad from the very beginning was never about making some type of everybody the same system.
Yeah.
It was everybody different.
Right.
That was the whole thing.
Yes.
Now think about this. As we're all different, the Alter Rebbe is demanding of us that if somebody wrongs another person, you should care for him like Yosef and Mechav.
Right.
Yosef, these were at least his brothers. Here, we talk about Rabbi Akiva and his Talmidim. Okay, they were all trying to be the same.
Right.
They had differences in the way they looked at it. Here the Alter Rebbe is trying to make us all different.
Right.
And yet all sit by a farbrengen
Right.
and see not only the Rebbe in yourself, but the Rebbe in somebody else.
Right.
And be able to respect it and speak to him that way and engage with him that way. And then to treat him even if he did something wrong to you. Why? Because avechad l'kulanu. There's a hafla here that we're not saying is we're all the same and therefore let's treat each other the same. We're saying we're all different. We should love each other's differences and then have even greater avos Yisrael to each other.
Right.
With those differences.
Well, but that's the ultimate reality check. Do you love in this case, are you connected to the Rebbe or are you connected to yourself? Right? What does it say in Yom Yom? What does it say in Yom Yom? That like if you have avos Hashem and not avos Yisrael, you probably don't have avos Hashem. So is that just like some kind of like like shtech? No, it's a reality check. If you think you have avos Hashem, but God is bigger than you, so how do you know if what you love is an extension of yourself or something that's truly bigger than you? Well, one way to find out is, can you handle and love someone outside of you who pisses you off or you think is completely bonkers, right? And the more you more love you have for different, not for difference for the sake of difference, but for people who have a connection but are difficult for you, the more we can believe that you actually love God and not yourself.
Or
right?
as I say, the more you could appreciate somebody else who's different than you, the more Rebbe-like you could become.
Right, okay.
Because the Rebbe is able to tolerate 600,000 different people.
Yeah. Look,
if you could do 2, 3, we're doing better already.
Yeah. Look, I have an instinctive problem with like the whole Rebbe-like thing. I understand where you're coming from, and because I tense up from it doesn't mean it's wrong. But I just feel like if the Rebbe is taka, and I think he is way above, infinitely above a regular person, beruchnius. So we can't pass that chasm by just saying Rebbe-like.
So I want to say something.
You see what I'm saying?
And
like
you spoke about how you learn Torah.
When did I say that?
One of the podcasts. Give a share. Oh, what's his name? From YU. I don't know his name, but that was
Bashefkin.
Bashefkin, yes.
Is he from YU? Yeah, he's from YU.
Yeah. So I think in one of the first Mamorim of Sukkot, maybe Shemini Atzeb, I think it's Sukkot, the Alter Rebbe started speaking about how in the Bais Medrash they had the Lul V'Nesrik, Shiva Yamim, right? And they had my. He goes through all the different things, and now that we don't have it, Daf Miskifinim Bazich, right?
I don't remember.
That's the way the minor begins.
I'm not bakant in Alter Rebbe. I didn't claim that, did I?
No, I didn't. You say give a share.
I did for a while, but I learn every week. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's what he says. You have to find it in yourself. Think about it. We're about to go to Pesach. And the night when you read the Haggadah,
right?
How much of the Haggadah is about what happened in the Bais Medrash?
A little bit. The Korban Pesach.
Mention it.
Yeah, very little.
But most of it is about the Sdarim that happened right after the Churban.
Right. Yeah.
And all their struggle of Maskin Yetzias Mitzrayim B'Leilas.
Right.
And if this is even possible.
Okay,
that's already the Biurim in the Psukim, but then you have at the end, Rabbi Gamliel says, Pesach Matzamar,
I see what you're saying. It's a golistic document. That's what you're saying.
Yeah, and the whole end of all the Pirushim of how many Makkos there were.
It's all in the past. Okay. Yeah.
No, I'm not saying the past. I'm saying
it's positioned in Golos, not
right. But we're talking and celebrating Sdarim that happened in Golos already.
Right. Megillah Esther is similar. Yeah.
What I'm saying is that I don't understand. Why aren't we talking about the Bais Hamikdash?
Right.
No, we talk about, and this is, I think, the issue that we talk about Rabbi Choni ben Zakkai. He saved Yavna. He made a major change in Yiddishkeit.
Right.
Instead of it being a Bais Hamikdash, he said, "Ein l'kadosh baruch hu l'davar namar shel halacha yeshiva."
Right.
It's going to be in a yeshiva,
right.
And I'm going to save the yeshivas. And what happened from it? That we have the whole Torah Shabbat Peh and everything we have, and even more so, we talk about one time we were forbidding him with Rabbi Reuben. We were speaking about this, that the whole idea of Rashbi saying "Man pnei ha'adin da Rashbi" is only because the Bais Hamikdash was destroyed.
Right.
That because there's no Bais Hamikdash, now all of a sudden it's reflective in a human being. Would we ever say that there was a Mishkan in a human being, right? If there was still the Bais Hamikdash standing?
You're romanticizing Golos over here.
No, I'm not. Well, the Rebbe also a little bit spoke about the Avodah of Golos, and what I'm saying is, we say, what's the greatest generation that ever lived in history?
Yeah.
their Hashmad of Rashbi, which is a little bit mind-boggling because it's the third generation of Galus B'chlal, right?
Right.
My point only is I'm saying all of this is that this idea that become Rebbe-like, when we say that we do the things today, Zecher L'Churban, meaning, Zecher L'Mikdash, where we take a little Venesik Shiva Yamim,
right,
and we do different things that weren't done, but we're now copying what was in the Bais Medrash. Why are we doing it?
Right.
Because we're saying is that what happened in the Bais Medrash now has to happen in us. Why are we davening 3 times a day?
Right.
We're Zecher L'Mikdash, and B'makim Tmidim Tiknun. Well, you tell me the Tmidim of the Bais Medrash is happening in you?
You're saying, let's take the words literally. Okay, I hear you.
So if you're saying that going from before Gimel Tammuz as a time of Geula, and you're talking now about a time of Gullus, and you want to use that language,
right,
what is the language? The language is now it happens in you.
Right.
So then become more Rebbe-like. More Rebbe-like means when you sit by a farbrengen, you don't curse somebody out because that's what Chassidim did. A Rebbe would pick somebody up. He would show love.
You also don't get shikker.
Also. No, I'm serious.
Yeah.
I think a shliach just going out and getting shikker and
forget about a shliach. Yeah.
I'm saying any person who's a responsible person.
Right.
You're responsible to make a dir b'tachtainim.
No, not to mention that I said not to get drunk, but
no, I understand. What I'm saying is that all this together, I'm saying for Kurt.
Yeah.
Now the Rebbe sometimes did drink by a farbrengen, and I'm saying if somebody does it in the right way, I'm not here to. I'm giving over the general idea. Are you trying to find the Rebbe somewhere else? Like I have to go to the oil to find the Rebbe, I've got to go to 770 to find the Rebbe, or the place you're going to find the Rebbe is in your heart with another Jew.
I understand what you're saying.
Where is it? When the Rebbe spoke the whole Hey Tevis, and you mentioned it also, Ein Chossid, Mazar B'chaim, Afu B'chaim.
Right.
One Chossid, the Rebbe leapt. The Rebbe didn't say in my books, the Rebbe didn't say in my institutions. I think this is one of the most amazing things that I think we don't really fully appreciate by the Rebbe. By other Rebbeim, they said, Ich lazach t'ksavim.
Right.
Ich lazach, the Rebbe spoke about the nechasim, right?
Right.
They left different things. What did the Rebbe leave? At least the Rebbe left everything. But what did the Rebbe speak about leaving? Mazari b'chaim. His children.
Well,
the Rebbe spoke about...
Well, you know why? I mean, there's an obvious reason why.
Why?
Because other Rebbeim had someone after them.
But then why they say the Svarim? They could have said the next Rebbe.
No, but they were talking to the Rebbe. The Rebbe Shah was talking to Fidik Rebbe. I'm leaving you the Ksavim, but you're the Rebbe.
I hear you.
I think that's like also something that is overlooked. It's like the Rebbe was the first Rebbe talking, where if Mashiach wouldn't come, there was no heir apparent. There was no heir. Period. And he knew that.
Right, but I'm saying something more than that. When the Rebbe tells you how to find out an answer about histadrus, what should you do? The Rebbe says, go...
But there's no Rebbe, so the only thing that's there is Chassidim.
I understand, but who does the Rebbe tell you to go to if you have a problem, what you should do in work? What does the Rebbe tell you to do?
Go to Mashpia.
No. The Rebbe says, for Inyani Avoid to go to Mashpia, to one Mashpia.
Right.
Inyani histadrus, go to 2 Yedidim Mevinim.
Right.
Who are you 2 Yedidim Mevinim?
Right. Do you have 2 Yedidim Mevinim? Yeah.
Well, you should, I hope.
Yeah.
That's back to the first thing we said.
No, that's very Farkash's parsha.
But I'm saying is 2 Yedidim Mevinim. Who are these 2 Yedidim Mevinim? Are they like Rebbe-like people? Like, and the Rebbe is telling you this is the answer that I'm going to give you through these 2 people.
Right.
You don't even trust them. The Rebbe does.
He uses those words. I'm going to give you an answer through them.
Well, the Rebbe is basically saying that if you want to know what to do and how to get an answer, this is what you should do, right? 3 doctors, 2 Yedidim Mevinim, or your Mashpia. Mm-hmm. The Rebbe is just giving us some nice advice, so the Rebbe is trusting human beings to say, this is where I'm continuing.
No, that's what I'm asking. Did the Rebbe use a lashon that I'm going to answer through them, or is that this is how Chassidim are going to operate from now on? I'm not looking... there's a big difference there.
I know, but I'm not looking at it right now.
Right.
I do believe it's that this is the way to get an answer from the Rebbe.
Because with the Mashpiyim, like I know that the Rebbe said that's how I want like that's going to be. But okay, interesting.
These are the last farbrengens that were weekday farbrengens. Right. I read it this way. That look, it's what happened also in the whole story of Rabbi Yeshua right after the Churban.
Right.
Torah Lei B'Shamayim, nobody's going to come and say some malach or some navi or some guy told you. The bottom line is it's going to be decided by 3 rabbanim. Which rabbanim? The ones who live right now.
Right.
And they're going to dictate Torah.
Right.
And they're going to dictate the Eibishter. That the Eibishter is going to say Nitzchoni Banai.
Right.
And that gives nachas to the Eibishter. There's a certain love that a father has that his kids actually make him a decision.
Right.
It doesn't have to be perfect. It has to be that they made a decision and did something special.
Right.
The Rebbe wanting us to become Rebbe-like doesn't necessarily mean in a certain way, in a certain picture, in a certain perfection.
Right.
It means that the Rebbe trusted us to invest himself into us, and that we could each have a dira b'tachtainim in us.
Right.
And ultimately, I wish that we would appreciate it ourselves and appreciate it in others. I would say it that way. But I do think that if you look through all the sichos and mamarim of such a time, you'll see this type of language.
B'seichel namar leb'seicham. Every Bosi Lgani.
Yeah.
There is no b'seichel in this world if there's no b'seicham. Like, there's no like lashon yachid anymore. It's lashon rabbim.
I once asked my uncle Manas, one of my first years after I got married, I asked him if I should put 36 hadasim into my lulav. So he told him he told me that he says it's yura. You should only do 35.
Yeah, that sounds like
But I still did 36. Why did I do 36? I want my kids to know what the Rebbe's Lulav Esrog looked like. Why am I not celebrating the Rebbe's Lulav Esrog? Why are we so scared to say, yeah, the Rebbe lives in our lives, and we have to bring that out more and more and more.
Fair.
And that's our duty here, and it's our duty. And this is now going back into the question is and this is I think the next question of this: do we accomplish this with our children? What are we telling our children? To tell our children that there was a Bais Medrash, and it was in the past, and I'm just going to. Is that a language? And I'm not taking this away from the fact that many children are sitting and learning and watching the farbrengens more than we did. And in other words, because we just grew up at that time, I was never really at farbrengens. Farbrengens were on Shabbosim. I was in Masifta in Detroit already. I never experienced. A kid today could watch farbrengens every day. Yeah. And because of the fact that you're doing it with your own free choice, your mamish living it.
I couldn't do it. I was never able to do it.
I'm saying, but
there are bochurim that do it.
There are bochurim who do it, and it's unbelievable. But I'm talking about the average bacher, the average person who's growing up in Pittsburgh, right. Or in where are you, Philadelphia?
I live in Philadelphia.
In Philadelphia, in many of these communities. This is back what we spoke about before about what identity. What is the identity? What are we teaching them? What are we telling them? What is Chabad today? Where are we going? What is it? Something that was, something that in other words. I'll ask you a question. An average kid in Philadelphia, in the community that you're in, I don't know what. Where are they for the mashal, a regular yontif?
Oh, they're in Philadelphia.
In Philadelphia.
Yeah.
So Bachram, so the Israeli Bachram, Baruch Hashem, I think they all come to 770. They come to the oil. There's like all groups, and I think there's a lot of other Bachram in other places who do similar things. But I'm thinking, as the average kid growing up in, and by the way, I think back to the point we said before, how diverse we are.
Yeah.
And the Rebbe made us diverse.
Yeah.
What's the identity that these boys are getting today from the perspective of Chabad, Lubavitch, Rebbe?
Forget about boys, adults. It's interesting. It's interesting. One of in a way, what kicked off this whole podcast, or the idea of this podcast in my mind, years before I started it. I was talking about 10 years ago. I think it was actually at the home of one of your wife's cousins, Wolf.
Yeah.
They lived in Philadelphia she was married to Hecht, and they lived in Philadelphia for like a year or two. And we were at Shabbos lunch by them, and there were a few other Lubavitch families there. And maybe it was a week before Tammuz. I don't remember. It was already a while ago. And the conversation at the table came to like, what does it mean to be a Lubavitcher? And I don't even remember what people answered. Probably obviously Sral, Shlichus, whatever. I thought it wasn't like the answers weren't anything. But what's interesting and what stuck with me was every person had a different answer. I'm like, that's interesting. Like, what's going on there? Like, what's going on here? Like everybody has a different answer, and you could chalk it up. Oh, this guy's more Lubavitch. Okay, irrelevant. Each person feels Lubavitch, and when you ask them what it means to be Lubavitch, not like how Lubavitch do they act and how much is it, what it even means conceptually. Everybody has a different answer. So that's already people my age who are not kids growing up. But again, I think I understand what you're saying about Rebbe-like. I understand what you're saying, like Zecher Lemikdash, and the idea of, realizing that ultimately it's up to you to make this work now, and so you have to internalize it, you have to embody it on some level, and that has, that's how the whole Gullus Yiddishkeit works at all. But at the same time, it's very hard, and I'm not saying it's impossible, but I think those two things are in tension. Where to be a chassid today is to be Rebbe-like, but then you still be yourself, because if you're yourself, how are you Rebbe-like, right? And I think that, right? So I think that's where the tension is. I'm not saying it's impossible to negotiate for carrot. What you're saying, like mazar b'chaim, afu b'chaim, doesn't mean that you become ois zare for carrot. You are who you are. That's precisely who you're meant to be. You're not going to be someone else. You're never going to reverse that. Time doesn't reverse, right? You don't become the father. You're the zare. However, if you are alive with something that was given to you from your father,
which is your essence,
right? And you allow it to come out, and you embody it, and then what he was is still alive in this world, albeit in your shape, in your form, in your experience.
Correct.
Right. So, but it's it's possible, but I think that is a challenge, because when the message is, so for example, there are certain pockets of Lubavitch, like the Spitz Lubavitch, right, where like Rebbe-like is to dress like the Rebbe, or to be, I'm not saying it's widespread. I'm not saying everyone's like that. I'm not even sure if it exists, although my guess it does somewhere. But you see it happen over there, where it's like it's all about there's only one way, and like there's a competition of what's the way, because there's only one Rebbe, right? And I think there is a tension there that has to. And I think that's what lies at the tension. Maybe it's being resolved. I think as you speak to more and more people, you realize that there are different ways to be a chassid. So clearly, people are figuring it out on their own terms. But what does it mean to get to your question? What does it mean to be a chassid today? What does it mean to be a Lubavitcher today? To answer your question in short, it means to live, I think, by the Rebbe's ideals. And by the Rebbeim's ideals. I don't know, it's only the Rebbe. There's 7 Rebbeim, by their ideals, and to live with it, and to be courageous enough to live with it on your terms. That's what I think Lubavitch identity is, which is more of a question than an answer. But I think that's what it is. Like, Lubavitch to me today is about courage, and it's about, I don't like the word authenticity, because anyway, I'm telling you what I think. I'm not saying what I know for a fact, but if I had to answer the question, I don't like the word authenticity, because it's just bandied about as an excuse for half-thought answers and like laziness very often. But I think it's about courage. I think it's about honesty. It's about risk. Like, I'm gonna try. Like, this is what I think. This is what I believe. And if I'm right, I'm right. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong.
So I think one of the things that I think make this difficult, and by the way, what you said is good, because you actually brought out even more of what I'm thinking here. Because there's nothing more that the Eibishter or the Rebbe would want than true nimna hanimnois. Like, like some nobody being mamish Rebbe-like. That would be like, like the snei nenu uchal. I mean, that's like the picture of like Chabad Chassidus, snei nenu uchal.
That's a good chap, you're saying. It's a divine chap.
It's probably the divine kavana. I mean, that the holy Starshulis is probably to get to some point like that,
right.
which, right? It makes sense.
Right.
And not only that,
but it says like that a melech likes a tinek medaber, because it's a chiddush.
Correct. Yes.
A novelty.
Correct.
So it's a chap.
Correct.
It's a divine chap. Yeah.
Correct. And so for carrot, you're actually strengthening my my thoughts here. Sure. But at the same time,
you don't have to argue.
No, it's good. I think that there's an element here, which I think is when we look at the Rebbe always, for whatever reason, was so gekocht in Mashiach.
Right.
Mashiach. And I always asked myself, like, why? Like, what was the Mashiach? And one of the things that came to me is that Mashiach is something that's be'etzem, but it's by all people equal. Mm-hmm. Moshe Rabbeinu, he has to have there's Rosh Bnei Yisrael, and Mashiach, the Moshe Shabadur is the nasi of the dar, and through the rosh, the rest of the body gets, right? And then you have places where it says, by the way, any Talmud Chacham is Moshe Shabadar. Fine, but it's yet through this hierarchical structure, if that's the right word to use. Mashiach is this essence where he and all Jews are equal,
Right.
at least in Chassidus.
Right.
If you learn in the Amorim, like Yud Zayin and Achim Pesach, other places, him and all Jews are equal.
Right.
And you find this, the Rebbe would quote this all the time in Torah, how the thing it said about Mashiach, we say V'koyim banu or these types of things. It's almost as if the Rebbe looked at it and said, really, we're not different. We're really not different. And therefore I can demand from you exactly what I'm demanding of myself. In this Mashiach structure, it's about everybody being totally unique, yet everybody being totally one and beyond the world, something totally beyond.
Yeah.
And what I'm saying is that, and I just want to go into this, is that it's easy just to scream Mashiach and things like this and put a bumper sticker, etc. But let's think about the Rebbe wasn't driven to change a world.
Right.
That means if you were to ask me and you were to say, what did the Rebbe really want? I would say the Rebbe wanted every Yid, Goy, and every animal in this world should be like serving the Eibishter somehow. Well, they're all serving the Eibishter, we know that, but like in a revealed way and this world becoming a perfect place. I mean, like we walk out, we give out a few Shav Mitzvah Bnei cards and whatever people do, and they feel like, we're making a change in the world. I think the Rebbe was expecting like the whole world to change, right? I think that in this regard, the Rebbe was very different than the previous Rebbeim.
Right.
And I think in the previous Rebbeim, they themselves were involved in Askanas Saklal. Some Chassidim were. Right. But for the most part, they were demanding of the Chassidim themselves their own Avodas Hashem.
Right.
By the Rebbe demanded us to Pashut, go out and change the world. It was about changing the world, a drive that was unsatiable. And I think that one of the problems, one of the issues that have become because of not dealing or not moving the Rebbe's message forward and speaking about what the Rebbe demands of us is that for many of us, we become complacent. That this generation of being a Lubavitcher today has now a complacency to it. I'll be fine. I'll do my Yichitas, I'll do my Rambam, I'll go on Mivtzayim, or sometimes you have, we have here one of the person who was the president here moved away a few 2 years ago. So he decided to start a block party, whatever, Rosh Hashanah. Since then, every Yontif, he has, I think, 50, 100 Jews coming to his house, like a Chabad house. Here, Baruch Hashem, the blocks are full of Yidden, and they're not from Yidden, and they're all coming, and it's like a shluchas. Every one of us could be driven, could be making a difference. Is that Rebbe driving you still going, or we feel like, I'm disconnected from it because of politics, because of the way somebody spoke to me, because I don't have an identity in it. When I grew up, everybody just moaned of me that I should have a white shirt, and I should do chitas, and so that's what makes me a chassid.
Right.
Who is the one pushing forward with this call, with this identity, with this, the bochurim are growing up and they're saying, I want more than just being a regular Jew. I want more than just being, I would say, the chassid of pre-Tafshin Yud. Well,
no one's in a way, by definition, no one can and no one should. That's the point that you're making. You ask why the Rebbe spoke about Mashiach. I don't know why. I don't not because I'm some.
Neither do I. It's just my theory.
Not that I'm some big chassid or on of it. I don't have the Rebbe on the surface had many different positions that don't all add up to me. And
by the way, simply he Pasha wanted Mashiach.
I don't even begin to believe that I understand all of his motivations. But I think one of the things that I see what you're saying about Mashiach being quote unquote democratic, but I think what I would get at it is that again I see it that the Rebbe was a final Rebbe. One way or another, it was a final Rebbe. Either Mashiach was going to come or he wasn't going to come, but he was going to be the last Lubavitcher Rebbe. It was clear to everyone. It was clear to him. Okay, there was no, and so, and especially if you feel that like, the seven spheres is how it was always meant to be. Whether it's just how it was or how it was meant to be, leave it up to you. But he was a final one, and so every project has to be at some point wrapped up, and in a way like, what's a final word on all of this 200 years plus of Chassidus, of the Rebbeim, of this growth and development of Lubavitch and the ideas and the way of life and so on? What's the final words? Where does this lead us? Does this lead us back inward, where everybody retreats to their own corners? Or does it lead us to a kind of homogeneous, like everybody has to come back to one way of living, and we all kind of like, we hunker down in a certain way and say this is it, and that, and push everyone else out, like we spoke off the podcast of like, we're only gonna have a school for these kind of kids, a camp only for these kind of kids, because that's what feels chassidish, and we don't want any. Like, are we gonna do that, or are we gonna say, look, at the end of the day, guys, Chassidus Chabad is like, it's nothing if not a declaration of like going all the way. Like, we go all the way up to Atzmos, and then like in the world, it's all the way to the end point. Like, that's it. You cannot have it halfway. At least, like, to be intellectually honest.
Or
right?
in other words, every single Jew of every single kreis, of every single non-Jew is going to be affected by Chassidus. This isn't stopping by me and you.
No, I understand, but even within Lubavitch or even within Chassidus Chabad, like, you cannot limit it at like some art. Like, any limitation is artificial, right? Any like, oh, it includes this and that. It includes this way. It doesn't include that way. Like you're saying, it includes this way. It doesn't include that way. That's artificial, because like what Mashiach. Like, I remember growing up in yeshiva, I don't know where this started from. It sounds like it started in Detroit because it's that crazy, but I don't know. Maybe it came elsewhere. Like, that, like there was a big, like, worry that, like, on one hand, we want Mashiach to come because that will mean there will farbrengens again. But at the same time, if Mashiach comes, that means that we're going to have to share the Rebbe with all the other Yidden. It's going to be annoying that now we have to pack in.
I think both statements are wrong.
Of course, yeah. I told you it's crazy, but
see, I don't look backwards.
Yeah, no,
I personally believe when Mashiach will come, the Rebbe will be listening to you, farbrengens.
No, I hope not. But
Why do you hope not?
No, look, I certainly would hope that he has a nicer shul to farbrengens in, and I think it would be nice if people had normal, like if not seats, because not bakavadik, but normal like places to stand.
I have this imagination, by the way, that when two bochurim sit today and learn a mimer in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, or they sit down to a farbrengens. And by the way, I'm just illustrating the idea of Balashmo Emid Kenegdoi. The story of the Friedrich Rebbe. I'm listening into the farbrengens that the Rebbe speaks about.
Right.
I almost have no question that the theater, and like you said, the chidush of two Lubavitcher bochurim sitting right now and learning a mimer together, or farbrengens together and talking about whatever it is, skashros, ibigigam. I have to imagine like all the rabbeim are like, oh, let's go watch this. This is much more entertaining. This is much more inspirational. This is much more. I would think that the Rebbe would rather be there than like going to hear the Rambam say some Torah.
The Rebbe said that about the Friedrich Rebbe. He said about the Friedrich Rebbe, I forget in one context, in that first year of that the Friedrich Rebbe, what Nishmasu begins in Meremim. He's not begins in Meremim. He's as close to this party as he possibly can be. He's not escaping to.
But because he wants to listen.
He wants to fight for us. He still, he still cares. And I think you're adding a positive kind of happy gloss to it, which I think is very nice. Yeah, that there's a tremendous shashuim and tainug that they must have from seeing people learn their chassidus and try to understand what it means. No, I understood your point that the Rebbe would listen. Yeah, look, I think that at the end of the day, anybody who thinks, look, I for me to understand and to contemplate why people listen to this podcast puts me in a very strange place. It's not healthy. So we're certainly not going to consider like the Rebbe listening to me. I'm not going to go there. I understand your point. I'm not.
But it says it in Svarim.
I'm not going to say there, but you know, there's a lot of things I need to get to. What says in the Svarim. This is not front on the list. It's. I think if you take it seriously, it's massive.
Okay, but I'm trying to say is
you have to take it seriously.
Does a Bachar appreciate how great and how lucky and what's going on in this world right now for him? Or does he think that he's in a black world in the middle of some terrible gullus? Chassidus has never been as bad as it is right now. If I only could have lived at a different time.
Well, look,
how are we growing up? How are our kids growing up?
My kids are girls, and my boy is 1.5 years old. So to be honest, I'm not trying to be coy to your question. I haven't given it that much thought in terms of bochurim, and I think girls are different. I think they have been different. Oh, I mean, obviously they've always been different, but in this topic have been different. But to answer why? Why?
And by the way, in a certain way,
because
I'll say this for girls even more than for boys.
Yeah. No, but I'll tell you why.
When was the last time our girls or your girls experienced what I would call a rebbes type event?
Yeah,
you realize that till Gimel Tammuz, the women came to farbrengens. The women came to our
They got a contrast.
They got the contrasim.
Yeah.
They were equal in everything.
Yeah.
And since then, the men go to the oil, the men go to seven. The women go too. But if you have the farbrengens that they have, Beis Rivka.
So they have Chabad farbrengens. They go to school. I hear what you're saying. But I think girls and women, and obviously I'm generalizing here. I think they have this idea that you talk about, like being a chossid in an internal way, has always been instinctive to them, and also the way, like, yeah, they went to farbrengens, but they also didn't go for many years when they were mothers. They wouldn't go, and so they had to figure out, and they figured out instinctively that you can be a chassid without always being in their proximity. And it's like my husband's or my father's going to the farbrengen, and I'm not going, and I'm still a chassid. And so they were already dealing with that.
Right, but I'm coming from a different perspective. The perspective I'm coming from is, do we sit as leaders or as people, whoever we are, thinking about the Rebbe or thinking about the kids? And this goes back to the core of what we were speaking about before.
Yeah,
if the Rebbe is in our children, looking at our children is really where we should be looking for all the answers and for everything that we have to move forward.
Okay, I think you're going a bit farther.
Say why?
Because that's a very American tznua of basically absconding or abdicating relationship and saying, okay, abdicating responsibility and saying, it's too hard to be an adult, so let me look for answers in my kids.
No. What I'm saying is
kids,
that
kids are taka optimistic and they taka have wonderful things, but they're also just kids.
No. What I'm saying is something else. I'm saying is if I want to create in my shul an experience of Simchas Torah,
right?
My goal is not trying to make it as traditional as it was by the Rebbe. It's trying to do what the Rebbe did to make it as adaptable to the kids as possible. So
I still disagree. I'm not saying it's wrong, but I disagree. I think because it all starts with us. I'll give you an example, a similar idea, but in a different topic. Like a lot of times, like why are bochurim not kochen sich in Chassidus? The age-old question. Why can't I get them to like really get into it? Why are they always tired and verschlafen in the morning? Okay. When was the last time a bacher saw in his yeshiva two of his mashpiyim really going after it on a mimer? When was the last time a bacher saw his mashpiyah come into Zal middle of the day and learn Chassidus? I'm not trying to knock mashpiyim. I'm sure they learn them in private and so on. But my point is that we're always focused on like how to fix the bochurim, and it's like if you don't have excitement and energy around it in yourself, like you could do whatever you want for the kids. They're gonna see right through it, right? So, like,
no. So we're talking about two different things.
No. But I think I'm answering your question. Like, if you want to talk, I understand that you're not making it about the past, but the question about making it for the present isn't to make it for the kids. It's to answer that question for ourselves, right? Like, how's Simchas Torah relevant to me today? How is Simchas, like, how do I experience Simchas Torah in the shul that I daven in, the Beis Chabad I daven in, wherever I am, it's a full Simchas Torah. Like, I'm present here. I'm not closing my eyes and remembering. Okay, I can't even remember. I wasn't old enough. But like, wishing that I was there, being Mitzayer, X, Y, Z. Maybe there's a place for that in a portion of it. But overall, yeah. Like, how do I make it? Like, how do I come to terms with this is what it's at. This is where it's at. This is where I'm at. How do I make this happen? I agree.
Correct. So, but I think this goes back, and we'll bring up now two things. And first, on the first thing is that, but that's why I miss the chazarah's chassidus by the oil. I think the Seder Negunim with the chazarah's chassidus by the oil is something that the kids and we all remember.
Right, you observe it, yeah.
You're emotionally connected into a group that's experiencing something.
Right, you're singing Negunim with older chassidim, yeah.
Exactly, and there's a element that if you do something like that, you're thinking about how the children and the younger people are appreciating the time here.
Right.
When you're just sitting here and farbrengens by yourself and farbrengens with a bunch of people and saying l'chaim, etc., and these other young kids are doing it themselves, they're lost. And when they walk away, it was just like any other. What I'm saying is that we sometimes have to think about, not about how do I feel the Rebbe more in my farbrengen. It's about how does the kid feel the Rebbe more in the farbrengen, as a shliach, as a person. Because I think that is where the Rebbe really is more. Mm. The Rebbe is more in that kid than it is in your mimer right now. The Rebbe always put himself into people. And yes, it's through a mimer and it's through your davening. And when you have the chance, you have to daven b'avoda, and that's true.
But why your kid? Why not you?
You as well.
No, but what?
The kid in you.
No, why does it have to be the kid?
The kid in you.
Why are you so adamant on it? Like, because a kid, the allure of the kid is innocence. I'll give you another example.
Okay, why am I picking on the kid?
I'll tell you my pushback. Maybe you'll explain to me that you don't mean this, and it'll get my. I remember in Parksville during Archikala, so you have all these older Rosh Yeshivas. No, they were old. Some of them are not alive anymore. They were old. And they would come to camp, and they were doing their thing. I don't know if you're ever in Parksville. They're doing their thing in the tent or whatever, and then they would come like during Shabbos. They would walk into the lunchroom, and all the kids are singing their camp songs, and oh wow, Lubavitch slept. And to me, I'm not like that pisses me off. No, I don't know what they intended, and maybe the Taka felt good, but to me it's like, okay, we thought we were done for, but now these kids are singing camp songs. And it's like, you can get kids to do whatever you want. Like, it's not a proof of anything.
Okay, so...
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, but I think...
So, like looking for that kid's innocence and, constantly fixating on kids' innocence, to me, is like an abdication of, we're adults. Life is complicated. We're not innocent.
Okay, so I'm saying it in a whole different way.
Okay, so I wanted to clarify. Okay.
And I'm looking at it more from, I want to say it's a little bit of a, I don't want to say political, but a little bit of a, Baruch Hashem, there's a lot of, different things going on in Lubavitch and in different places and different things. And everybody's trying to save the Rebbe and his moistus and whatever, right?
Okay. If you say so. I live in Philadelphia. I don't know what's going on.
That's fine. And I think very often you go to events, wherever they are, and people are trying to, what I call, keep for a lot of these issues that they're fighting about or they're arguing about, etc., is the integrity of the Rebbe and Lubavitch.
Right.
And I wish they would spend much more time on the integrity of our children and the Rebbe being in their lives and how to do that.
Assuming the future.
Correct.
You mean the future? Okay, not kids as kids, but what's a point of protecting something that nobody's going to care about down the road? Is that what you're saying?
But not because of the political perspective. It's because you're looking in the wrong direction.
Right.
The Rebbe didn't ask you about Gimel Tammuz.
Right.
He gave you a job.
No, but it's also practical. If nobody's going to care about it in 20 years, what's the point of these arguments at all? What's the point?
Yeah, but I'm saying even more than that. It's not even about the argument per se. I'm talking about also the what's the way to say this? When was the last time that elder chassidim, let's say, whatever it is, went around to all the yeshivas to farbrengens with bochurim? speak about the Rebbe's and Yanim, etc.
Well, it's hard for them to travel, but I think
They were able to travel to New York to deal with all the issues they're dealing with.
Yeah, so there was a time where, like, my grandfather with Hagoch was trying to, like, get Chossid to go to different communities.
That was communities, etc., and it happened for a while. But no, what I'm saying is, in the old days, leadership meant what it said. They put on Shal Shaloi, Shal Barzel, and they went around to go bring about...
There's no leadership coming. And I think there's no leadership happening.
No. So I'm not talking about... I don't want to say that. What I'm saying is that our focus...
All right.
In our world of what I call in the inner Lubavitch world. Right. So I think there's an unbelievable focus in what I call the guf of Chabad. The guf of Chabad is this hafatza, shlichus. In that, it's unbelievable. There's moistus galore.
Right.
To broaden it and to widen it and it's and the Rebbe probably wants it to grow even more than it's growing.
Right.
And it's sad that not every single kid is going out on shlichus in one way or another. Why isn't it our responsibility to make sure that the Rebbe wanted every kid to go on shlichus? Everyone should be able to go out. Every single person.
Right.
Who's supposed to be caring about that?
Oh, okay.
Who's caring about that?
Look,
do we actually care about...
I'll give you a great story that you're going to like. I'll give you a great story that you like. You finish your thought.
And this is all the same part of this. What I'm saying is how much time are we investing in our yeshivas and our bochurim? From this perspective, there's anhalas, they do their own thing. They go to another yeshiva, And I'm saying there's some great anhalas and there's great people.
But I think you're having it both ways here. The whole idea that you laid out about Mashiach being everybody and not being hierarchical is that, yes, in post-Gimmel Tammuz Lubavitch, hierarchy is not feasible. Like you cannot
but
wait.
People are fighting for it
Because they hate. Let them fight over. That's their problem. That's
and that's what I'm saying. The hashkafa issue is we should be saying,
who cares? Who cares what they do? Who cares what they do? That's what we should say. Who cares what they do?
No. I do care. Why? Know why?
No, but you be a leader. But I don't. You know
why?
Yeah.
Because I think if one of these people would go down to a yeshiva once a month.
Say that. Forget about that. But I'll tell you, I actually think that's an abdication in a way of our own responsibility, especially according to what you're saying, which I agree with. Okay, like I was thinking the other day, Nachshon ben Aminadov jumped into the ocean. Was he a leader before that?
He was married to Aaron HaKohen's
but he wasn't. We don't see any mention of him.
He was one of the Nesiim.
After.
Okay, I'm fine.
Moshe Rabbeinu standing there at the water. Let me ask you another question. Maybe it's been asked in the first. Maybe they've had a sikh about it. I apologize for my ignorance. Why did Moshe Rabbeinu jump in? Why didn't Aaron HaKohen jump in? Why didn't anybody else that we know about jump in? Well, I don't know why they didn't, but I could tell you that sometimes leadership. Like, sometimes the leaders can't do certain things. If they had done it, it wouldn't have proven anything. Okay, Moshe Rabbeinu's jumping in. Okay, he's Moshe. He's Moshe Rabbeinu.
So I'm laughing. So your point is, So that's why I started a yeshiva right now.
No, so Nachshon ben Aminadov, he wasn't a leader. He had courage. And he said, the hell with this. We have to get there. No one else is going there. I'm going to go there. And he walked until he almost drowned.
I feel like that's where I'm going.
There you go. I'm just saying, a lot of people make this point where we have to move past the leaders, but we're the leaders.
No. So I don't really.
The leaders are stuck in an old model.
Right.
You can't fix that. You have to. A lot of the leaders are older. They grew up their whole life thinking of things like, one day I will have to be X, Y, Z.
So I want to say as follows. I really am not talking here about any leader per se. I'm talking about a hashkafa thing. That people, I think, very often in Chabad, when they get into an argument or something like this, they're talking about, how would the Rebbe really want it?
They're losing the conversation.
Whatever. We have to realize that Rebbe is in people and in their kids. And if we speak, and if we live, and if we bring out for them a living Rebbe, a living Chassidus, a living Chabad, they will identify and they will continue and they will bring Mashiach and they'll do it with flying colors, earlier and earlier in the most beautiful way.
Right.
And if we sit here just being complacent, or if we sit here basically trying to make sure that we have all the relics perfect for the museum, or whatever it is, and everything is being kept perfectly in place, and it's about the old structures and institutions, rather than the children and the march forward to Mashiach, I think we have lost focus on what the Rebbe really wants of us, and and what the Rebbe really demands of us, and what the unbelievable beauty of our day is, the time that we're living in.
Right.
In other words, if you were to ask the Rebbe, in my opinion, the Rebbe would tell you today is greater than any day in history.
Right. Because it's today.
And it's greater than yesterday, and it's greater than before Gimel Tammuz.
Right.
That's what the Rebbe would tell you.
It's also greater than tomorrow because it's today.
Correct. That's what the Rebbe would tell you.
Right. Everything else is in a way irrelevant because it's nothing to do about it. Right.
And so my point only is so you're going to tell me today is greater than before Gimel Tammuz? That's what the Rebbe would say. Does your kid feel it? Or does your kid feel...
I keep my kid out of this whole part, to be honest.
Again,
not out
mean
of the
it personally.
podcast. No, not out of the podcast. I don't know. Like I haven't let them really engage with this whole...
No, but I'm just talking now about hypothetically.
Yes. No.
Do we want our kids to feel they're in the greatest moment of life, greatest moment of history, greatest moment of Rebbe, or in the weakest moment of Rebbe? Do they have the Rebbe more than anybody else? Do they have the Rebbe less than anybody else?
I'll be honest. I go make it even simpler. One of my main motivations of doing this podcast, of course, I have my own personal gratification. But one of my main motivations, and also the reason why my wife puts up with me doing it, is that it was like, wait a second, what am I setting my kids up for? Because the Lubavitch I had in my head of like the monolith and the kind of like everybody on top breathing down each other. I'm not bringing my kids up that way. I'm not gonna it's not, if I don't like it, it's not fair for me to say, you know what, here kids, here's something I don't like. You decide if you want to have it. No, if I don't want to have it, I'm gonna give them something else. I don't know what that other thing. So I was like, you know what, before I make that kind of radical decision, and it wasn't necessarily I'm gonna leave Lubavitch, more like I could be very apathetic and like transfer that to them. Before I make a real lasting decision for them, let me find out what's going on.
And you opened up a beautiful conversation.
Yeah. Yeah, but Baruch Hashem, thank you.
I
was very pleasantly surprised. Very pleasantly surprised. And it's like, I could tell my kids now, look, there are a lot of things that I don't agree with. There are a lot of things that I think are off kilter. There are a lot of things that I'm not up to. I'm not into it anymore. I was never into it. But I could tell you that there's something vibrant here. There's something dynamic. It has its challenges. It can't be left on autopilot. But I'm not setting you up for disaster.
But I'm saying it's even more. I think our kids have to know it's better and more unbelievable than ever.
No, but I'm saying I'm going even simpler.
I know,
and I agree with you. I think ultimately the only thing that will entice, especially in America, I think they never spoke about this, but I don't need to reb anybody. Like, it's logic. The only thing that will entice young people, especially in a time of choice where they have options, is that they want to do this, and the only reason they'll want to, especially when they have other options, is because you give them a reason to want to. Like, why is it that when we have kids who aren't frum, we're busy making Yiddishkeit beautiful, but then we have frum kids and suddenly it's a given, right? Like I understand that some of the methods that we use for kids who aren't frum don't apply. Like, yes, a not frum kid, you'll let them daven an abridged version of Shacharis, even when they're teenagers, and you'll pat them on the back. And your kid, no, daven the whole davening. I understand we have different standards, but the approach of them is all exciting. Our kids we take for granted, or you see it very often. Like, at least when I was a bacher, you'd be farbrengens with your friends, or Mashiach would be farbrengens with you, and whatever boring bacher, whatever. And then some Litvish guy or some frag bacher kid would show up, and all of a sudden the farbrengens is exciting. We want to talk to him. It's like, why do you find Jake more interesting than Yossi? The Mendy, why are you convinced that because he looks different to you is interesting? I know a lot of these people. Some of them are interesting, and some of them are dead boring. And there are plenty of bachrim that are fascinating. Like, why do we have...
Novelty.
Exactly. So, so you have to make... I wanted to add a story to what you said earlier about, the responsibility... Shlichus has to be available for people today. This was, to me, a story that stuck with me. That when I was engaged, and I went for chassan classes, whatever that means... I had some wonderful conversations, as you're about to hear, but anyway. So the guy I was learning with told me, we were talking, what are you going to do after you get married? Shlichus, this, that, the other. There's very few places to go. Yeah, I can go with my grandfather. Okay, in a way, he was right because I'm no longer doing it. But he told me, I was speaking. There was a shliach. It was in California. One of the shliachs in California. I'm not going to say his name. And he was talking the other day, and he's like, you know what? The tkuf of shlichus is over. There's no more places, there's no more positions. It's slowed down. Like, we have to admit, the tkuf of shlichus is over. Okay, I'm a 24-year-old pipsqueak. I'm an idiot. What do I know, right? But I told this guy, I'm like, you know that if you say the tkuf of shlichus is over is for me, it means it's over for you too, right? Like, you know that's what it means, right? Like.
Okay.
Is that true?
Okay, I hear you.
It's not true?
Not what he meant, but good.
I know what he meant.
I know.
Because he thought he could have it both ways. But he can't.
I don't know about both ways, but go on, yeah.
He thought that he could be a shliach, bring Mashiach, but like it's also over, which means like we could.
That's not for our kids.
No. With him, it's not about his kids. He
no,
does have a
but
place.
no, but you're back to the point I'm making. I will keep the tradition and the legacy, but it's closed for others.
No, because shlichus has now been defined to, like you said, a vestige of the past. But shlichus has always been to bring Mashiach. So if you have closed the door on everyone else, like Mashiach hasn't come, and you've closed the door, what are you doing?
You've lost what shlichus is.
Yeah,
right.
Well, you're doing something else now. I don't know what you're doing.
No, it's true.
Yeah.
What I'm saying is, I think this is what I'm saying is when we're focused on the children and others the way that Rebbe did. We are living Rebbe more. We are more Rebbe-like. We're doing the things that the Rebbe wanted. And it comes out in so many areas of life. And when we are very much into ourselves sometimes, we start bringing it into our shlichus and into our things.
Right.
And I think that this is, I think, one of the biggest challenges of our time right now. And I'm just back to this, that I think it's vital that our kids... and I'm dealing with bochurim, but that they must recognize that there's going to be great Shlomo Kunins of the future, and great Rabbi Avram Shem Tovs of the future, and great Rabbi Yudel Krinsky's of the future, and great Rabbi Grumblatz of the future.
And they're going to look different to all of them also.
They'll look different, but they'll all be great in their own ways, greater than ever. Right. And they will be more Rebbe-like. They'll be more, you want to say the word Mekusher, or more Atzmi with the Rebbe. And in their ways, that's really the vision that we have to really not only believe, know that's what's going to happen. Right. It's absolutely, if we believe in the Rebbe, and we believe in what the Rebbe wanted, we believe in this future. And it also means that there is going to be shlichus in every realm of this universe.
Right.
That means if we haven't gotten into every kreis, learning Chassidus, look at the Torah and Satmar. Everywhere. I don't mean Satmar Dafka to use Satmar per se. In every place, in every corner.
And modern Chabad also.
Everywhere. I'm talking about everywhere. Yeah. We still haven't lived up. Shlichus has not been scratched the surface yet.
That's correct.
Of change. If we look at what the Rebbe's vision was, what we've accomplished, it's very small. We could walk around and say, "Oh wow, it's unbelievable." I think remember when one of the books that came out, maybe Lamplighters or Despite All Odds, they wanted to make graphs of how much was accomplished. They made this many mikvahs, this many this, and then we wrote, "That's it." This is embarrassing numbers. Right. That was. What I'm saying is that if you look at the accomplishment that's going on, yeah, it's unbelievable what's going on in Shlichus and the amount and everything. It's unbelievable. But look, at the same time, we talk about technology, right? It doubles every year and a half.
Right.
Is Shlichus doubling every year and a half?
I don't know if it's every year and a half. I know we talk about Moore's Law, I think it's called.
Yeah. I'm saying, is Shlichus nowadays doubling?
No.
Is every bacher of ours going on Shlichus?
Look, I think the numbers bear it out. There may be Shlichim going out, but in terms of percentages, it's dropping. There's no question about it. And my question
is why aren't we, what's lacking in us that we're not inspiring our children to what we were inspired to? Shluchah Shem Kamaisa means we've got to inspire them, and that's our achrayas. Yeah. And we've got to jump into that water like Nachshon ben Aminadav to find the ways for them.
Yeah. Why is it more exciting for a frum younger man today to potentially make $500,000, $1 million a year than to go on shlichus and touch people's lives? And I don't say that from a position of being on shlichus. I was on shlichus and I left, and I help shluchim and I work with shluchim, and I hope that in that sense I'm part of it. But
But I do think that this is one of the problems. We've allowed this idea
but I'm
that
saying
somehow
I'm
you could get out of being a shliach.
No, but I'm saying I'm part like official shlichus I'm talking about, and I'm, in that sense I'm I am exactly what you're talking about, right? And some of that I don't think can always be blamed on the elders. It could be on me. I made a choice, and people make choices in the world. But I understand what you're saying, and
but I'm not here to talk about your choices. I'm here to talk about. I believe that you need a place where you're celebrated.
Yeah, well,
where what you live as a chassid is inspiring. Where you live as a chassid is something that's cherished, and therefore more do it, and therefore more go out and push their lives forward this way.
I see what you're saying. I still think, and I think this may be where we have a point of difference. I see what you're saying. I think it's not so much about celebrating everyone for who they are and that kind of talk. I think
No.
I think if shlichus itself was like radicalized, like someone told me today, like shlichus used to be a startup and now it's like a corporation. I'm like, no, it cannot be that way, because the whole point of a corporation is we've built a company. Now, how do we maximize profits? That's what it is. Like that's very often there's a founder of the company, the startup, who comes up with an idea, comes up with a concept, builds it out of zero, has to fight every way, and then when they hit a certain 5 million, 10 million, they get fired, and somebody comes in to maximize this idea, but no new ideas happen. That's the definition, right? And so it's not even about how do we add more shluchim to the existing model. It's about
new
constantly
models.
It's constant not revolution, but constant radical innovation and change. That's the only way you're going to move forward on this Mashiach trajectory, let's say, right? And so it's not only about. I guess I do agree with you. You have to celebrate people's innovation and so on, but it also it has to be. I think
not only innovation.
I'm contradicting myself. Look, I agree with you that we cannot expect the leaders to change. They're not going to. It's a lost cause. Okay,
I don't think anything's ever lost.
No, the leadership. Like, look, I'm related to some people on a goch and like all these like boards, and like everyone likes to blame a lot of things, and maybe they bear responsibility for different things. Okay, I'm not here to litigate, and I don't talk about those things in public. But
I'm also not looking to go to anybody personal or to anything.
No, but I'm saying
I'm talking about the Innovating.
But people know that I'm related, right? And it's like okay, look, people have their kindness. I'm not going to speak about one way or another in public. However, I do say that it's going to be very interesting when that generation is taken over by the next generation, and you can't blame those people anymore. What are you going to say then? It's very easy to have a bogeyman. If only they did this and they did that, everything would be in order. Okay, what's going to happen when it's your turn? Let's see how. You cannot.
So I'm here sitting here and saying that in this conversation, I think we have to stop focusing on what all those people are trying to save.
Yes, exactly.
And start talking about why is it that a bacher who can't learn doesn't see a future for himself in shlichus if he doesn't have a father in shlichus or something like that? Why isn't that every single Lubavitcher isn't inspired, excited, and has a pathway and inspiration to go out, and whichever way he's going to do it?
Because the leaders today are simply not big enough to have room for inspiration for everyone. And so we have to start decentralizing things and empowering bochurim to say, you know what, you do your thing. You have your mashpia, have your friends, whatever the structures are around you, and do your thing, and that's it. Don't care what anybody says about it. Don't look for affirmation. Don't look for the leadership to confer praise on you. If you get big enough, they'll come to you. Don't worry. But even if there's this bacher. I don't know him personally at all, but there's this bacher Yossi Farrow. I don't know if you've been following. He's a 21-year-old bacher. I think. I don't know. He's around that age. All Ternik, I think, or Crown Heights for sure. And I think the past couple years, I don't know the whole backstory. Maybe one day I'll find out. But he uses social media to put on tefillin with all kinds of celebrities, and it's not just the celebrities, because he also puts on tefillin with all kinds of people, but that creates a certain public awareness of this, and that has a trickle down effect of many other people, and it's very what he's done is crazy.
Correct.
Okay? Now, if he went to the leadership and asked them if to do it, how to do it, most of them don't know what social media is. Half the people that he put on tefillin with, especially at the beginning, are people that maybe don't do it in public. Look, but he didn't care, right? And not everyone, and most people are not going to do things that get so public and get so. But I think that's a model you're looking for. Right, people at the end of the day have to feel that this is their Yerusha. Lubavitch is their nech. Like, it belongs to them as much as it belongs to anybody else, right? And you don't the Spitzbacher or the big shliach, whatever, doesn't get to tell you whether you're in or out. The camp or the school doesn't get to tell you whether you're chassidish enough or not, right? I may not be good enough for your school, but Lubavitch is not yours.
Right.
Have a nice day.
But when you had the interview with Rabbi Korn, who is speaking about how it changed the world and his wild ideas, right? I believe that Rebbe's ideas were wilder than his,
Yeah.
And all I'm saying is when we were kids, and when we were kids growing up, again, I grew up on shlichus and everything. There was a world to conquer.
Right.
Today, you could say it has to do just with the school that my kids went to, but many of the kids the school went to, they had the same conversations like you. Shlichus is closed.
Right.
Not going to happen. And I think it's time, as you say, the Nachshon ben Aminadavs, or whatever, and I hope whoever people are, to recognize that we have to open up new doors. We have to make new doors. We have to figure out, if we're going to really live like the Rebbe wants us to live, we have to make our generation more advanced than ever before. At the same time, more, like I said before, the Rebbe-like ever before, meaning we're more with Emunoh, Va'avasai, V'yirasai than ever before. And you see it, by the way, in bochurim all the time.
Right.
Guys who are frummer and more dedicated than ever before. And those people have to be given opportunities like never before and figure out new opportunities. Right. You say, oh, it wasn't in the books before. So what? Write new books. Right. That's exactly what was done with Torah Sheba'al Peh. That's exactly what happened in our Haggadah. New books were written. New ideas came about. New things were done. And I think that Rebbe, what's what he wants us to do? Take responsibility and figure out ways to inspire and to get every single kid and every single boy and girl to feel that, to actually recognize that the Rebbe leapt, and if you want him, you'll find him. He's there he's in you for the taking. I don't want to say for the taking. You just got to live with it,
right?
And find the pathway that you could live and achieve in the way that Rebbe wanted, and you will be greater than any chassid that ever lived. And it's going to be that way. I don't think there's a shaila b'davar. One of the things that you had from Mrs. Gorelick, keep a seat for me and my husband on the front rows. Some of the, to hear that from her. And who were they?
Right.
Who were they?
Right. Exactly. A girl who had a boyfriend in school.
Yeah. Who were they?
I mean, I'm only saying that because she said that in public.
I'm saying, but who were they? Right. Yeah.
Girl had a crush in high school.
Why can't our kids and every single one of them achieve just as much and just as great?
I agree.
They have to feel that we see them as the Rebbe saw them. They have to feel that they're being given the opportunities as the Rebbe. And who's the one? We're the shluchim to give it to them.
I agree with you. Look, at the end of the day, I think it comes down to trust. You spoke about the Rishima, about the connection a daughter and the trust that a daughter has in her father. And I think I remember another Rishima that I forget the details, but the similar question of trust versus contract. Something to do with the reward that you didn't get from the Avodah. Is it a contractual thing or is it a trust thing? And there's a trust that the daughter has in her father, but there's also the trust the father has in her daughter. And a daughter will only trust a father if her father trusts her. Right, and maybe right after Gimel Tammuz, it was about the trust that the child has in the father, and the Rebbe, right? The famous video that they made, the lost shepherd, was it the faithful shepherd, right? And then we trust that they didn't leave us. Okay, but at some point it's like, wait a second, that only works if he trusts us, and if we trust ourselves as a result, right? And I think that's what this comes down to. Is kids or the next generation or our generation will only move forward if we trust ourselves to do things our way and in a way that makes sense to us, and that may not look as like it did in the past. The same way that those people, by the way, a lot of the older Chassidim didn't trust them. Like, what's going on here? What are you guys up to? Suspicious. Same thing. Do we trust ourselves or not? Are we meant to be here or not? Is it, you know what I'm saying?
You just gave me a new pshat. That Emunoh, Va'avasai, V'yirasai is not Emunoh b'Hashem.
Right.
It's Emunoh but in another human being.
Right.
Do we trust another human being the way that Rebbe trusted us?
Yeah. Yeah. I think like if we Nachshon ben Aminadov at the very least had some serious, like they say, cojones. He believed in his own in his gut. He believed in what was right, and he was ready to go all the way with it. Like the question, how do you get kids there? Well, at the very least, you have to trust them, and you have to trust that that this is where they belong. This is where we belong. Yeah. Anyway, to end off, whoever's still listening, you have a yeshiva here in Pittsburgh.
Yes.
That believes in bochurim.
Well, we just started. So
what's the name of the yeshiva?
Right now we're calling it Pittsburgh Zal.
Pittsburgh Zal. And you're open for
we're open
for enrollment for next year.
Yeah. No, Baruch Hashem. This is our goal, is to be able to address what I say. This identity of an average guy should be able to truly one day see himself as a chossid like anybody else and change the world like anybody else. And sometimes maybe with skills that you wouldn't have necessarily attributed to average shluchas. Meaning, if I were to see a boy in 5 years from now who's a therapist in a frum school, helping kids and spreading Yiddishkeit, we should celebrate this as shluchas, new frontiers, new ways of having kids. And I think, I'm just going to put this in a few words because we're on this already. I think, as we spoke about before, today we have many, many children who their parents were doctors.
Right.
Parents were Bali Tshuva. And the Rebbe told them to stay in college. The Rebbe told them to, the world that they know is not the world of the Sefer.
Right.
Some of them are able to become very well acquainted in the world of the Sefer. And some of them, their natural instinct is to go back into that world.
College, right.
Whether it's, why can't they be shluchim? Why shouldn't they be shluchim? The Rebbe said every Yid is shliach.
Say on their terms, yeah.
Who's celebrating this, and who and we're and all I'm saying is, I'm not talking about going back to college. That's not what I'm talking about at all. But I'm talking about people who, with their skills and the way doing it in a right way, in a proper way, should be celebrated in shlichus in new ways to open up new frontiers. Every one of our kids should ultimately feel and recognize there's no hierarchy in Chabad as shluchim or Mashiach.
It'll be celebrated. I'll tell you why. Because at the end of the day, people have kids, and their kids go off in different directions. Correct. And they have siblings, and their siblings go off in different directions. And with time, people are going to realize that you cannot force everyone into one narrow path. There's going to be different ways. And there are people that you love, and you'll begin to see the good in it. And I'm hopeful.
So am I, Mirz Hashem.
All right. Thank you very much for doing this.
No problem. Thank you.
The music for this podcast comes from the album Repentant Doors by Oren Tzor and Nadav Bachar and is used with their permission.